Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, June 25th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Another day, another record number of coronavirus cases confirmed in San Diego County. Today, the county reported 335 new cases and 5 additional deaths from the virus. Across California, hospitalizations are up 32% over the last 2 weeks. As KPBS reporter John Carroll reports, Governor Gavin Newsom announced an ambitious coronavirus forecasting model for the state.
We are seeing roughly 56,000 new cases just in the last 14 days, and so points of obvious and real concern.
Trend lines that are becoming headlines, in the governor's words, the kind of headlines no one wants to see. Fortunately, things are not, as one Texas doctor described the situation in his state, on the verge of being apocalyptic. California and San Diego County hospitals in particular still have capacity to handle a surge of COVID patients. But our state's numbers are heading in the wrong direction. So today, Newsom announced a new initiative he's calling the Model of Models.
We want to open up the opportunity for more and more people to get engaged in helping us build our models.
Newsom says California will open up access to all of the data state decision makers use to guide the state's movement through the COVID crisis. The idea is to encourage researchers, scientists, AI experts, math experts, anyone with expertise in modeling to dig into the numbers with the goal of reaching the best strategies possible to defeat the virus.
We want it to promote a different outcome by promoting a different consciousness and ultimately promoting a different behavior.
As we reported Wednesday, there is concern about visitors from Arizona driving over to San Diego, given the terrible situation there right now with almost no hospital capacity left. I asked the governor today whether he is considering doing what his counterparts in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut have done. That is, imposing a 14-day quarantine for anyone visiting from a so-called hotspot.
We don't believe at this time, that is necessary.
The governor then pivoted to a reminder that whether you're visiting or you live here, it is now mandatory for everyone to wear facial coverings outside the home. He concluded with a familiar theme that our destiny is in our hands.
At this critical juncture, when we are experiencing an increase in cases that we had not experienced in the past, to take seriously this moment. And if we do, we can mitigate and we can mend.
John Carroll, KPBS News.
The Sweetwater Union High School Board has voted to place Superintendent Karen Janney on administrative leave, and this comes after a state audit revealed evidence of financial fraud at the district. Among other things, it found that the district relied on incomplete financial information before authorizing a pay raise for teachers in 2017 and did not make proper disclosures in a 2018 bond measure. School Board President Frank Tarantino said, however, the decision regarding Janney shouldn't be viewed as punishment.
The board's action is not a disciplinary action, but it is to support and ensure an efficient investigation of the concerns raised in the FCMAT report.
And also during last night's meeting, the board officially laid off 223 employees. The cuts included teachers, librarians, and other staff. District administrators said the layoffs would close $22 million of a $30 million budget deficit for the upcoming school year. Demonstrators converged on a busy intersection in Poway today for a peaceful Black Lives Matter rally.
Say his name! George Floyd! Say her name! Breonna Taylor!
About 100 people held signs and chanted on the corner of Twin Oaks and Pomerado. They say although larger rallies aren't being held right now, that doesn't mean supporters of the movement aren't holding police and government leaders accountable for changes.
We don't want to see this movement die out because this is something that's very important to us. And we were seeing it die out, and so we decided let's do another one, make sure people know that we're still here and we're still willing to fight for the things we believe in, because if they think we're going to go away quickly, then they won't change anything.
And many people drove by and honked in support of the movement, which remained peaceful. Also in Poway, school board officials are set to vote tonight on some anti-racism proposals for the district. They come after a number of students posted some powerful messages on an Instagram post called Black in PUSD. More now from KPBS education reporter Joe Hong.
In one post, the student recalls being called a racial slur for refusing to lend a classmate a book. Another black student describes what it was like to never have a teacher who looked like her. That same student says a classmate once told her slavery was a good thing. These are just a couple of the more than 320 anonymous testimonies posted on the Black in PUSD Instagram page in the past week. Poway School Board member Darshana Patel says she was surprised at how widespread racism is in her district.
And you can see if you've read some of those incidences, it's pervasive. It is an absolute reflection of what's going on in our society at large. It's between students, between staff and students. There's a lot of learning in our school community. We have to confront this.
At tonight's board meeting, Patel and her colleagues will vote on a resolution that would require the district to revise hiring practices and re-examine history textbooks and other course materials. The district's current racial disparities are stark. Consider that out of about 1,600 teachers employed by Poway Unified during the 2018-19 school year, only 8 were black. And while more than 16% of students are Latino, only 5% of teachers are Latino. The district has also pledged to investigate any allegation made against a specific teacher. Patel apologized to those students who reported these incidents and were ignored by school staff.
It's genuinely an apology. We're not doing enough. I think it's pretty clear. I know that we are re-examining our processes. We're going to do some deep reflection on confronting our internal biases, and we're going to look at that. There will be change. I guarantee that there will be change.
Joe Hong, KPBS News.
The Supreme Court has strengthened the Trump administration's ability to deport asylum seekers without giving them their day in court. The court's ruling applies to people who are picked up at or near the border and who fail their initial asylum screenings, making them eligible for expedited deportation. The vast majority of asylum seekers are barred from entering the U.S. under new coronavirus border restrictions. Before the pandemic, the San Diego Food Bank was feeding some 300,000 people. Now that number has nearly doubled. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman shows us the food bank's plan to increase distribution.
So we have 500 nonprofit partners. We're taking 35 of them to make them high volume, high frequency distribution sites.
Thanks to donations to the food bank's COVID-19 response fund, they're creating about 3 dozen of these super food pantries countywide.
Thank you so much. Awesome job.
Today, the food bank gave out checks to its nonprofit partners who will run these beefed up distribution sites.
So what they have to do is they have to distribute at least 3 days a week and do that until December 31st. In return, they're going to get as much food as they can distribute. We're going to push so much food to them, and then we're giving them capacity grants of $20,000 to help build their infrastructure. Congratulations.
Thank you,
and you get the banner too.
One of the nonprofits running one of these super pantries is Jewish Family Service.
Would you like us to load the back seat or in the very back?
The numbers have just skyrocketed, so we're seeing a really large increase, and people are coming through on a daily basis to our drive-thru. We're serving over 1,000 meals a day through our drive-thru.
You're all set. Have a good day. Enjoy.
Thank you. JFS officials say many people are coming to their food pantries for the first time, but for others during the pandemic, this resource is helping now more than ever.
People really don't realize how hard it is, just even for simple things like food. So we're a family of 3. I have an 8-year-old son. And we're so thankful to this, so thankful.
Kari Mata says her husband recently lost his job, and this extra food goes a long way.
Programs like this make such a difference for families. And like I said, for the last few months, this has been a savior to us.
The food pantries provide fresh fruits and vegetables, as well as breads and other dairy products. Mata was even able to pick up some dog food for her brown lab.
Yes, and they saw my dog and they said, do you want food? And it's science diet, it's good food too, so that was awesome.
Travel safety, thank you for coming.
The food bank was previously doing large-scale distributions at places like SDCCU Stadium during the pandemic, but these super pantries will take their place.
We learned that the mass distributions, they really lack client dignity. And so you know that 1,000 you can serve, but 3,000 get turned away, they wait in line, they don't get food. So this is a grassroots approach. It gets people in their neighborhoods where they can go, a trusted partner, they get the food they need to feed their family with complete client dignity.
To find a food distribution site near you, call 211. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
And the American jobs crisis is far from over. Nearly 1.5 million people filed for unemployment aid last week, and that brings the total number filed since mid-March to more than 47 million. First-time claims for benefits have fallen every jobs report for the past 12 weeks. However, an additional 700,000 people applied under a new program for self-employed and gig workers that make them eligible for aid for the first time. A government watchdog says $1.4 billion in stimulus relief checks went out to over 1 million deceased taxpayers. The errors happened because of a lag in reporting data. The IRS asked for the money back, but some legal experts say the government may not have the legal authority to require it to be returned. They say they're unsafe because of lack of personal protection as well as illegal layoffs, and today hospital employees from Palomar Health took action. The group says Palomar Health received more than $15 million from CARES Act funding. They also say CEO Diane Hansen failed to make necessary improvements for staff and is not complying with labor law. Hansen talked to KPBS today and said between March and May, the hospital lost about $45 million. And the accusations are coming from a very vocal few.
It is not the opinion held largely within the organization by our employees. And, I think it's unfortunate that the union is making allegations that are absolutely not true. We follow all California labor law, and, we work with outside counsel as appropriate to ensure that we're following the appropriate rules and regulations.
One employee said in the last few weeks, Palomar has allowed the commingling of assignments between COVID and non-COVID patients.
Meaning, if I get assigned to take care of a COVID patient, I will also have a non-infected patient. I can have somebody who just had surgery. I can have somebody who came in for stroke symptoms. Somebody who has hypertensive issues.
In May, the group called for the contract termination of CEO Diane Hansen, and earlier this month, board members decided not to terminate her contract. It was another warm day, especially in the inland valleys and deserts. Jeff Cornish shows us when some relief could be on the way.
It's still a warm one out there right now, hot across the interior through the evening. And we'll still be toasty on Friday, but there are changes brewing, which we're looking forward to. So the heat's still with us for now, but there is a significant cool down arriving beginning on Sunday. And a lot of you are going to probably appreciate the change, especially if you're tuning in from one of those inland areas. There will be some wind associated with that as well, which we'll look at in a moment. But when we take a look at the overnight forecast, down to around 63 in El Cajon, Ramona 54, Borrego Springs 76, staying pretty warm there, 62 at Chula Vista and in San Diego. Pleasant near the coast, but we're still hot and dry across the interior on this Friday. Storms way over into the central Rockies and south central Rockies. So tomorrow will be another hot one, 109 degrees in Borrego Springs. Mount Laguna, nice place to be, 78 degrees there in the high elevations, and then we'll be around 73 into the city. As we look ahead to the weekend, still hot, at least for most of the weekend, but by Sunday and especially Monday, this dip in the jet stream is going to make itself known here locally with some cooler air. And we can watch as this trough sets in from Monday into Tuesday. It'll still be with us for a couple of days here. So that'll be a nice change as that does roll in. When that first sets in, though, the wind will pick up in a significant way. Now, the wind may not be impressive near the coast, but inland areas, especially into the mountains, you're going to see some gusty winds, 45 to 55 mile per hour gusts, and it's very possible, if not likely, that some of the highest elevations could see winds up to 60 miles per hour. There will be a slight increase to the fire danger, especially in the interior and the inland areas, though, associated with those stronger winds, especially into the desert southwest, well off to our east. So we're in the mid-70s for the coast Friday and Saturday, then back into the low 70s. Low clouds in the morning, brighter afternoons. Inland areas, low to mid-80s, then into the low to mid-70s come Monday. That'll be a nice change. Mountains, temperatures falling into the mid-60s on the cooler side into Monday behind that trough, or under that trough. And the deserts will get some great relief. 109 on Friday, down to 91 on Monday. Enjoy that. I'm meteorologist Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
The Centers for Disease Control says the actual number of Americans who've been infected with the coronavirus could be 10 times higher. That's roughly 20 million people. The CDC director also pointed out conditions that may lead to more severe illness from the virus, and they include chronic kidney disease, COPD, type 2 diabetes, obesity, chronic heart disease, and those with sickle cell disease. There's also new concern. Pregnant women may also be at a higher risk. San Diego scientists have zoomed in on the coronavirus and found a picture that isn't very sweet. KPBS science and technology reporter Shalina Chatlani says the virus is coated with a sugary exterior that makes it hard for the human body to fight it.
Most of us have seen a photo of the virus, a giant sphere covered in spiky proteins. Well, it turns out those spikes are covered in sugar, says UC San Diego chemist Rami Amaro.
And it's those spike proteins that are really the main infection machinery of the virus. And these are the bits of the virus that get really heavily decorated with this sugary coating so that our immune system can't detect it in the body.
Many cells in our body also have sugar coatings. Amaro says viruses, like the coronavirus, have adapted to be covered in sugar so they can blend in and survive and be more infectious.
The human system thinks it's just sort of similar to what should be in the body and then doesn't attack it.
The existence of this coating is well-known research, Amaro says, but what's new is that her lab used a supercomputer to zoom in on the virus and figure out what these sugary spikes actually look like.
There are some holes in the shield, and these are so-called vulnerabilities. And this is why it becomes really important to know what it looks like, because if we can identify where those open areas in the shield are, it gives us a better chance to potentially design neutralizing antibodies.
Amaro says the research will help with vaccine and antiviral design so that they are more effective. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
The Marine Corps recently banned the Confederate flag on military bases around the world. It was the first step toward what the Commandant of the Marine Corps has called a difficult conversation about racism in the Corps. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh has the story.
I see the face, look at me now!
From the time Marines enter boot camp, they're told that the service is colorblind. There are no white Marines, brown Marines, or black Marines. Everyone is Marine green.
That statement I'm totally against, and I explained it to a lot of the leaders.
Stefan Williams runs a leadership training firm in Jacksonville, Florida. He joined the Corps in 1993 and retired in 2014. During that time, Williams facilitated many conversations on racial bias. He still works with Marine units as a consultant.
When you tell people that, hey, you're all green, it's just like saying, I don't see color. If you don't see color, you don't know who's on your team. So I have to know that, hey, as an Asian Marine, I know the cultural challenges you're going to have in the Marine Corps.
Williams, who is African American, remembers walking into an empty barracks. His new roommate had a Confederate flag on the wall.
I told him, hey, listen, this is not going to work out. I'm going to have to leave. And they pulled me out of the room. I got a different roommate. But later on, that person was actually court-martialed for actively recruiting into a racist organization.
Early in his career at the time, Williams says he didn't think about reporting the incident to his command. He feared he would be the one to get into trouble. Other Marines felt the same way.
When you go against the grain like that, you don't want to get singled out, and so when you get labeled and outcasted, right?
Francisco Martinez Cuellos is from San Diego. He retired from the Marines in 2015. Originally from the Dominican Republic, as a kid he was attracted to the macho image of the Corps. He remembers talking to a friend of his in his unit who was consistently being singled out for extra duty. They both agreed it was for one reason. His friend was black.
And I actually remember talking to him and apologizing to him. And it got me really emotional because I didn't do anything about it. I didn't, I just looked at him and said, well, you got to do it. But I didn't speak up.
In conversations with a number of retired Marines, it's a common story. 10 years ago, Travis Hoare was at an isolated post in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. Like Hoare, most of the unit was white. He remembers fellow Marines repeatedly complaining about their African-American corpsman, the Navy term for medic, or says he remembers defending the corpsman after seeing him help save the life of an Afghan woman.
So why are you giving him a hard time kind of deal? Probably not as much as I should have in retrospect, but again, I was young and
Stefan Williams, the retired Marine who still works with military leaders on issues of race, says it's still a difficult conversation to have.
First, let me tell you why people don't say something. They look at what they're willing to lose to do the right thing. Do I want to lose this if I speak out? Because those people are actually factors in your career. If you're going to get promoted, if you're not. If you're going to get to duty station, if you're not. How long you're going to be with them, how hard they're going to make it for you. So we're a little different because a lot of people have power around us. But we talk about intestinal fortitude all the time and moral courage all the time.
Williams worked in personnel for a significant portion of his career. He remembers white Marines who didn't want an African-American president's name on their retirement papers. Quentin Hinnut was a sergeant. He left the Marines in December after 4 years in the Corps. Like other Marines, Hinnut says there has been change, but it's been slow. For Hinnut, honest, open conversation is the key. It binds together people, and it binds together units or shops.
And when you don't have that connection of where you could talk to someone or have a friendly conversation at all times and not just be work-related, it could diminish relationships between shops. It could diminish relationships between people.
He welcomed the ban on the Confederate flag, but he says the Corps is no worse or no better than any other American institution when it comes to handling race. Meanwhile, Secretary of Defense Mark Esper recently announced that he was ordering the Pentagon to take yet another look at how racial dynamics play out across the military. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
And this story was produced by the American Homefront Project, a public media collaboration that reports on American military life and veterans. Funding comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Disneyland is on delay when it comes to reopening. It will no longer open its gates on July 17th because of the resurgence of COVID-19. Disney is also awaiting new reopening guidelines from the state on theme parks, likely to come after July 4th. Officials say it will also take time to bring back thousands of its cast members. Splash Mountain is getting a makeover at Disneyland and Magic Kingdom in Florida. The ride is based on Song of the South, a movie many view as racist. It will be rethemed as The Princess and the Frog, which features Disney's first black princess. Disney says the changes had been in the works since last year. The decision over whether to wear a face covering or not has divided Americans. But as Mandy Gaither shows us, a new study suggests they may have significantly reduced the number of coronavirus cases.
Wearing face masks in public prevented as many as 450,000 new cases of coronavirus, according to a new study. That study, published online in the journal Health Affairs, estimates between 230,000 and 450,000 cases of the virus were prevented in the states that enacted requirements for mask use between April 8th and May 15th. Researchers say wearing face masks in public reduced the daily number of coronavirus cases by as much as 2% in Washington, D.C. and the 15 states that mandated their use compared to the states that did not. not. The longer the mandates were in place, the higher the reduction in COVID-19 cases. Researchers also looked at 20 states that imposed employee-only mandates but not public mask use, and did not find a significant impact on the spread of the coronavirus in those states. The study did have some limitations, including the inability to measure the actual use of face coverings in any community, and researchers were only able to measure confirmed cases of COVID-19, despite evidence that infection rates in some communities were higher. For today's Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And here's another look at today's top story. San Diego County set a new record for coronavirus cases for a second day in a row. Today, the county reported 335 new cases and 5 additional deaths from the virus. Across California, hospitalizations are up 32% over the last 2 weeks. School district officials in Poway will be voting tonight on a series of anti-racism proposals. The moves come as a student there made public some alarming allegations of racist treatment on campuses. Those messages were part of an Instagram post called Black in PUSD. We'll have results of the vote on those reforms tomorrow. And the San Diego Food Bank was feeding some 300,000 people before the pandemic. Now that number has nearly doubled. To help keep families fed, they're creating about 3 dozen super pantries countywide. They will take the place of large-scale food distribution events which had long lines. You can find your nearest super pantry by calling 211. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.